good for people to mute themselves. And I'm going to put the spotlight on Anuprabha, who's going to lead us in a meditation.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. This is a very spontaneous happening, as I just found out. So I just like everybody, we're going to do a little sound. I have a little tuning. Can everybody hear this?
Yes, we can hear it fine.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. All right. So if everyone just wants to close their eyes. Let's take a big deep breath in and out. One more time in and out. So I'd like everyone just to really tune in to your breath. Just feel the feelings of what's been happening this morning as you woke up and you opened your eyes. And feeling what part of the body was really alive and happening. And were you feeling sad, happy, excited, heavy, tired, exhausted? Did you hear birds singing outside? Did you hear turkeys gobbling in the distance? Did you hear cars going by? What was the primary just emotion that was coming up for you? And where was it coming up? All right, everybody, just kind of like shake your body out a little bit. And just feel your toes, feel your legs, your knees, your hips, your shoulders. Just shake out your head, your neck. Let out sounds if you feel like it. It's coming back into the body. Coming back into the Zoom room with everybody. And just slowly open your eyes when you feel it. You feel ready to come back in.
Beautiful. Thank you, Anuprabha. So I've put into the chat box kind of what I think would be best, since it's an intimate group and it's mostly kind of people that are on the coaching track with the exception of Mark. So I'm going to make Anuprabha the host. Um, and I'm going to leave and see if I've got to run some tests on my computer to see if it's going to be okay or if I have to take it into the shop. And I'd love for Anuprabha, well supported by Adrian and Daniel and Timothy, to really just work on how to translate stories into feelings and needs. And then within that, Anuprabha, your idea of also just reminding people of what empathy is, what empathy is not. I think that would be great. And just give everybody a chance to practice that. Does that seem clear?
Yeah. Does that feel good? I feel it feels good to me, Scott.
Yeah. Good. Okay. And if all goes well, and I don't have to take my computer to the shop, I'll be back in 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. So just say, this was super spontaneous combustion. This happened like 2 minutes, you're on, all right? Just that's like Scott's like MO. But hey, I'm a flow person, so, and Adrian's a really good wingman. So I and all you guys are like awesome. So, you know, I'm sure we'll, and I would just like to kind of like go around and feel just with the meditation, just really feel what's alive for everybody, and really what did come up like this morning. You know, what was the first feeling when you woke up? You know, what was the first like emotion in your body? You know, what was, and where was it happening? And then what can we do it like in, you know, like a couple minutes or so?
Couple minutes each.
What?
Couple minutes each.
Yeah. And who'd like to start?
I can go.
Okay.
So when I woke up this morning, not necessarily what I'm feeling right now, Anuprabha.
Well, you, well, sorry, what was that?
So you wanted me to speak to kind of my experience of what it was like waking up.
I don't know, that's just what came through in the meditation. It was just a spontaneous thing, honey. But if you want to go with what was happening in the morning and now what's happening, yeah, that feels good too.
Yeah, you know, so I've been navigating this relationship with getting up early to get my practices done versus my desire to keep sleeping, along with the times when I wake up with a certain quality of agitation. I'm really awake and it's easy for me to wake up and get going, but sometimes not. Sometimes I'm really just want to keep on sleeping. And Saturday, I give myself more, like there's more permission to like to sleep in longer. Yeah, so this morning, but I don't always allow myself to fully enjoy it. There's still this element of doership of like, well, if I take longer to meditate and then work out, then it's 11 o'clock. And it's such an interesting relationship I have with time and accomplishment and doing that I really want to let go of. And this is years in the making. So yeah, there's this morning, certain quality of like agitation, but just enjoying being with my cat and not fully settling in and giving myself permission.
Sorry, not giving yourself permission to
just be there in it, to just be there in my bed with my cat. There's this other voice going, oh, the longer you're here, the more time it's going to take as I meditate for an hour every morning. And yeah, just like this conflict. There's less on Saturdays for sure.
So the feeling of needing to keep on doing things rather than just relaxing. Yeah.
Sorry, were you wanting me to frame that into feeling of needs? That was kind of general, but yeah.
No, it was beautiful. I was just kind of getting it clear.
Yeah.
I totally can resonate with that. Thank you. Thank you, Adrian. Who'd like to go next? Ask what was Mark? Oh.
You can hear me now.
Sorry, yes, I just discovered my power of the mute.
Uh-oh.
Mute
Uh-oh.
and unmute.
Well, I had to translate a little bit because it's evening here in Germany. So I don't remember this morning too much, except that today was a big day for my partner and I because we were doing a big high alpine hike, and it was like 7-hour hike. So we got up very, very early and drove out to the mountains. And, I made it back in time for the class. But I feel really great.
So did you feel good like in the morning when you woke up? Was it a...
Well, in the morning when we wake up and we're going to do something like that, it's like you wake up and you go brush your teeth, eat breakfast, you get dressed, and you get out of the house because we want to get going early.
So it
So I
sounds like you might
remember
be excited.
waking up and being excited. Yeah, excited, getting my body, ready to, do a big thing like that. And then after that, I woke up excited, and then, it was like a rush to get out of the house, which was fine because we had planned that. And it was beautiful. It was 75 degrees here in Germany today, and the sun was shining, and it was just perfect. It was one of those, perfect days. We just had
Beautiful.
a good time, and we had a picnic up at the top of the mountain, and
So you had really
yeah,
fun, exciting, pleasurable days, right?
yeah, and it really satisfied my need for being out and being exercised and working my body and keeping fit, which is important. And yeah, and now I just feel I'm not tired, but my body's tired. But it's a good tired. Yeah, it's like so. So yeah.
Well, thank you, Mark. Would you like to go next, Candace? Okay. Okay. One
Am I
second.
unmuted? What? Hello?
Go ahead, Candace. We've got you.
Oh, you hear me. Okay. Thank you. So I woke up late this morning. For me, late is like if I wake up past 7 a.m., that's late for me. And I woke up at 8:30 a.m. And it's snowing in New Hampshire. It has not snowed here this late in April in over 27 years. So I'm just like, whoa on that. Yeah, I similarly woke up with some of that self-judgment, like, oh, I can't rest. Oh, you can't be tired today. It's shit to do, man. And trying to stay productive so I don't sit in that mindset where I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something. And I am, like, so today I made a choice to play with my makeup and put on tattoos and celebrate that. And I'm having coffee conundrums. I have 2 coffee pots that aren't working right now. So that was also an issue this morning. Went out on an adventure to find coffee that took a couple hours. And navigating I have a lot of clients reaching out to me right now. And it's really, and I usually have a pretty heavy flow. But I'm noticing there's a lot more clients that are in alignment. Like, I got 5 clients that reach out to me a day. If you imagine in a week, I'll only say yes to 3 of those. But I'm finding more yeses, but still discovering what that
Candace.
means.
Candace,
Yes.
that's beautiful. And we're just gonna stick to really the feelings of what's happening, just quickly the feelings in the morning as you're waking up, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess, I'm feeling really alive.
That's awesome. Yeah, I hear that. I hear that a lot of alive.
Alive and exhausted at the same time. Yeah.
Okay, alive and exhausted. Okay, yeah. Let's try to stick with it, just like what was happening when we got up. And all right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Anybody next? Daniel? Oh, Daniel, we can't hear. Oh, sorry.
I was twinkling you, Candace, just so you know.
Oh, right.
Ah,
Sorry, I forgot to
thank
twinkle
you.
everybody. Help me out here, guys. Yeah. Daniel, we can't hear you. You're unmuted, Daniel. Okay, he's going to go back and come back in. Mariko, I noticed you raised your hand.
Yeah. Can you hear
What's
me?
happening to you this morning?
I
Okay.
feel alive and amazing and joyful.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
woke
I
up
think
before my alarm.
let's stick with just like the feelings and the emotions of and stay like away from the story. So thank you so much, Mariko.
Okay, I was the shortest one. That was
You hit it. All right. Now we're all kind of figuring this out together, guys. It's co-created. And Mariko, would you tell me, where did you feel those emotions, that aliveness? When you woke up in the morning, where did you feel your aliveness and your happiness? And
I've been working with my heart lately. So my heart.
in your heart. Okay, beautiful. And Daniel, want to try again, love?
Is it working now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Well, I woke up at 6 to my alarm this morning. I don't like waking up to alarms, but I was able to accept it because I knew I was going to be here with you all. It's a good reason to have an alarm. But immediately I was faced with a challenge, being half awake, waking up to an alarm, and then challenged with the practice that we did last time that we're talking about right now. It's translating into like, okay, I'm not going to do jackal out and I'm not going to do jackal in. Wow, I really want to do jackal in. And so just like feeling like not quite awake yet and confused and kind of sad. Yeah, that's my morning so far. I can't hear you though.
Sorry, love. Thank you so much. And where did you feel that in your body?
Mostly like in this area. Yeah.
Throat, throat, heart,
Yeah.
throat and heart.
Upper. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, thanks. That's beautiful. Can everybody twinkle Daniel and Mariko, please? And thank you. And who'd like to go next? Timothy?
I too do not like waking up to an alarm, and had a very similar experience to Daniel, where the first thing I felt was, oh God, I got to get up. And that was heaviness throughout my body.
Mm.
When I did get up, there was a constriction in my throat and a sense of sadness in my heart, and definitely a sense of overwhelm.
Mm.
And then I get on the call on time, and I'm listening to Scott kind of scramble around to figure out what he's going to do with, I don't know, computer or whatever. And part of me honestly just went, oh, fuck, I'm going back to bed. I didn't sign up for this shit. You know, why isn't he organized and blah, 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 blah. And I'm still there a little bit. The meditation helped. So.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I totally hear you. Thank you so much for your vulnerability, honesty, Timothy. I thank you.
I will say, just because I don't want to leave it right there. I'm a little more in that child curiosity around, wow, this is cool. Scott's not here. What's going to happen?
And I think Greg. Hi, Greg. I think I can unmute you. Hi, Greg. Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yay. I can hear you.
Welcome. I don't think we know you, or I don't know you.
Am I here? Oh, somebody else talking.
Is this your first time in the group, Greg?
Mine?
Yeah.
No, I was here last Saturday.
Oh, were you in the grass?
I was the grass person.
You were in the grass person. Okay.
I was grass.
No grass. Okay.
I wasn't in the grass.
Hey, well, you know, we're all Northern Cali. We're all about, you know, grass. So,
Yeah, well, that was last week. This is this week.
okay. And so how are you feeling this morning, Greg, when you woke up?
I liked Tim's last comment about heavy. That's a common feeling for myself, and at the same time, having a new feeling of time to change, time to shift my energy. And so I woke up thinking, how can I be different? How can I go through my life differently? Like, instead of waking up and laying in bed, get up, make my bed, and go do some yoga. Or, you know, it doesn't even have to be that. It could just be like, so I'm just looking around, thinking about it, and trying to get out of that heavy and some sadness as well.
The feeling was a heaviness and a sadness.
And
what did you feel that?
and an inspiration
in your body?
And an excitement. So
excitement.
I would say the heaviness and sadness are kind of central chest, you know, heart, if we're going with chakras. And the more inspiration or excitement, I guess, kind of in between the chakra and the heart, or
between the heart and the throat.
Throat, yeah, like high chest
chakra. Mm-hmm. Thymus, yeah, thyroid.
Yeah.
Right, that's actually healing, special healing, interstitial chakra, actually. Thank you. Thank you, Greg. Twinkle, everybody. Tim, can you, Timothy's on the twinkle thing, all right? Will you, because I seem to be falling short of twinkling. Sorry, guys. So I woke up, it's interesting as a group, you know, how it goes, because I woke up feeling sort of heavy, kind of like, whoa, you know, like this again, and it's sort of overcast and heavy and some sadness as well. And just, I had a bit of dread. I had some dread come up too. It's just like, is this like, how many more days of this? And the food thing, you know, is a shortage. The shelves are like, just people are like going, you know, it's just like, and some fear around that, you know, and then sort of I got up and just kind of got going. I actually got in the car and went to the food pantry for the first time. Somebody told me about, and picked up some food, and that was kind of fun, new experience. And I got home and but then I was just feeling this, still this kind of sadness and some contraction in my heart and some throat and some survival stuff on the sacral. And then I got this thing like Scott was like, emergency. And so that got me sort of going. That got exciting all of a sudden. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm in. And so I do sort of like, that is an aliveness that feels, right? I like that aliveness, that sort of like excitement. It's like, okay, let's see how it goes. I'm open, I'm available. And so that feels exciting right now, you know, and feels alive. And a little nervous, a little yeah, just like kind of that tingly, like, okay. It's like, I sort of love that space of the unknown, actually, you know. So that's where I'm at right now. Just looking at just sort of like being in the unknown, the willingness and some curiosity about what we're going to do here. So all right, so here we are.
I really appreciate that in you, Anuprabha. Like there's so many ways that we can sit and experience, and hearing you talk about excitement and enjoying being in the unknown, enjoying kind of being in that nervous place. For me, it's actually different. At least when it comes to this kind of a thing, I don't like being in the unknown. I want to be prepared. I want to be organized. I want to know how it's going to go. And so it's just beautiful to hear your experience in reference to my experience, because I'm sitting in a different place around this. There are some unknowns, but really celebrating this quality of going with the flow. It's just
Thanks.
really significant part of your core organization. Like that's it's a beautiful thing to witness. Like, okay, yeah, and
Well, thank you.
Yourself, and then with us, and the recognizing my insecurities and just really appreciating you. So thank you for that.
It's interesting because I hear you, but then I have this total trust in you, Adrian. You know what I mean? I just see you have just this, and you too, Daniel. Yeah. Oh.
I would trust in Adrian too.
Yes, right. Well, I think we all trust you, love. So, and we're co-teaching this together, basically. So, what my first sort of initial feeling was when Scott suggested this a couple minutes ago was working with the I love his idea of translating our stories into feelings and needs. And I just sort of I just felt it would be nice to go over non-empathetic responses, right? Because sometimes, we can just find ourselves in non-empathetic responses. And does anybody remember any non-empathetic responses, for example? And like, for example, the first one could be like denying, right? So denying a person's reality, right? When someone's coming in and sharing, like, and like you're sharing your feelings, for example, like you're giving this really story, and say to my boyfriend, for example, I was once, I was once actually had this experience that my boyfriend, I felt I really got sick from him, like physically I got this, I got a virus actually. And he kept saying he had an allergy, right? And I said, I don't think you've got an allergy. I think you're sick with something. He goes, no, it's just an allergy. It's fine. And then when I got sick with it, I said, I think I got sick from you. He goes, no, I didn't. I just had an allergy. You didn't get sick from me, right? Even though I had the same symptoms as he did then. And it was really frustrating because, and I kind of just felt really frustrated and really didn't trust him to, with my physicality. And in fact, I've taken space just because I just don't trust his awareness around his body, for example. And so, for example, so he was denying, my feelings. And so I felt really shut down. I felt unloved. I felt uncared for. I felt really totally not open to him at all. Anybody else like to give an example of being denied? Daniel?
Well, one example that comes to me is, I know it's not part of the fracking. I think we're covering fracking right now, but it's weaving your story with somebody else can be such a fine line. And I've experienced myself personally and seen people where this person was really opening up and really needing to be heard about some deep stuff that was coming up during, she was getting a tattoo from this person, and it was this whole ritual. And then someone in the group like related to that story and started unconsciously weaving the story, but ended up taking all the attention away from this person. It was so painful to observe. And that's why weaving my story with somebody is like really challenging for me, because I never want to do that, you know? That can be so painful.
I know, I so resonate with that. I've had that experience when you're sharing with somebody and it's like you're being hijacked, right? All of a sudden you're just sharing this like deep, heartful, like pain that's going on in your life. And next thing they're off and running with their story, which is seemingly even worse than your story could even be, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so appreciate that. We do need to be so careful, you know, how we manage that. Marika?
To go with what you're saying, denying a person's reality, I'm really sensitive to gaslighting, but I think what I'm learning from this course is that even if it's something that you totally don't agree with, that you have to like take a step back and be like, okay, I'm not going to deny your reality, and I'm going to try and assess the emotion that's underneath this crazy fucking thing that you just said. But my gut is to be like, whoa, that's fucking crazy. What the hell? Do you really believe that? And then I'm like, oh, okay, that's not sensitive. That's not empathetic. I can't do that. That's so we can't hear you.
Thanks, Marika. Can you turn, can you look at us? Yeah. What happens if you go like this? Is that good? Yeah. Does that work better, honey? Yeah. All right. Thanks. That helps.
Well, I like look at the screen, which is up here. My camera's here, so that's what happens. So I
Okay.
look at you when I talk.
Yeah, maybe that kind of helps. If it's okay for you, if it feels okay to do that. Yeah. And so I just need to hear that one more time, Marika, the gaslighting experience of you being denied your experience.
No, opposite.
Oh, the opposite.
No. I have had that happen to me, so I don't want to do that to people. But the lesson that I've learned recently is even if someone says something that you really are tempted to refute because it sounds so non-factual according to your worldview, the empathetic lesson is to really still have empathy and not try to debunk their worldview immediately.
Okay.
Is what I'm learning.
Beautiful. So you're really like tuning into that person's feelings. It's feeling like you're like tuning into them without judgment.
Yeah.
It's like beautiful. So, I mean, maybe just for the sake of the non-empathetic responses, I'll just go through them. And then I'd like to just, you know, just the denying, which is the one we handled, colluding, advising, interrogating, evaluating, preaching, downplaying, and distracting. All right, those are non-empathetic responses. And then there's the red zone, which is judging, blaming, shaming, and comparing. So I think it feels really good to me to kind of go through these and like just like we did denying, and I'd like to go to like the next one and just have different people give examples of what, like the next one would be colluding, and just give an example of what colluding was, and maybe give a little example of your experience with colluding. If you've had that experience, if you've done that, if you've experienced that, and what that feels like. Does that make sense to everybody? Does that work? Because these are kind of big, right? These are like huge things with when we're giving empathy, and it's subtle. It can be so subtle when we're working with people. You know, it's just very subtle, and depending on who we're working with, we have to really, really fine tune, you know, our energetic fields, the way we listen, our deep listening, right? To really tune in. And because it's very, you know, it's just very easy to do these little things in a very subtle ways. So we're just, you know, we're just trying to really fine tune everything. So the next one is colluding. The example, you know, your boss is, this is an example on the sheet. Your boss is really a piece of work. there's really not much you can do about that. Oh, then colluding is when everybody would agree with them. The agreement about colluding is, for example, you're talking with, I'm talking with my girlfriends, and then we start talking about another girls, like, and that, and you're saying some, negative things about this girlfriend, and then you want your other girlfriend to feel that same way. You want her to agree with you, so that she won't like the other woman, basically. The other, it's a very subtle thing that happens. Colluding is really powerful. It's very easy to do. It feels very good almost when you're talking with somebody, because you want agreement. You want people to agree with you, right? You really want everyone to be on your team, right? And not on the other's team, especially if you get angry about something. Wow. Then talk about like a divorce, all right? All of a sudden your friends are divided up. There's two different camps. Either you're with me or you're with him. And if you're with him, just like erase my number from your, don't even look at me, talk to me. So it's just a very disconnected, way of being. And it's very painful, for everyone involved. Colluding. Who'd else like to give an example of colluding? Tim?
I once had a boss who was a very corrupt, compromised partner owner boss. And all of my 72 employees, I managed probably 18 directly, would have complaints about him. And it was really difficult for me to be in this position where I knew what they were saying was true, and I wanted to collude with them and justify their perspective. And at the same time, I was stuck in this position where I needed to honor the hierarchy or the power play. And if I did collude, then it would usually get back to him. And so I'd get in deeper shit, So I felt like this washer between a hammer and an anvil, bam, bam. And I was constantly having to be aware of not colluding and at the same time validating their experience. So it gave me a lot of practice of not colluding, staying out of it.
Well, beautiful. Tough position to be in. Twinkle, Timothy. Yes, everybody just, I need help with the Twinkle Brigade here. I'm like challenged. I think, thank you. Adrian.
A couple things have come up hearing your share and hearing Daniel's share around empathy and harm. I just kind of wanted to speak to it a little bit, and the subtlety of empathy. Empathy is all about wanting to understand what's happening for the other person, really wanting to feel the other person. So in Daniel's example, we can weave our story in with somebody else, and really coming from the intention to understand and to feel what's happening for the other person, to connect in that way, as opposed to bringing the attention back on ourselves. And I was really thinking about that before you brought that up, Daniel, the subtlety of, like, when are we really in pure empathy? And then hearing the collusion is such an interesting one, because we could be in wanting to understand the other person and feel the other person. But with collusion, there's this element of causing harm. There's this it's not just pure being with. And hearing, I'm really appreciating this topic because it's allowing us to kind of tune into the deeper, subtler ways that these different non-empathetic responses can really be not in pure empathy. And when they kind of can, and where the line can vary, being in collusion, you could be really connecting with how someone's feeling, but not from that pure place of being with. So I'm enjoying hearing these things and going, oh yeah, when am I on the line of empathy, and when am I in the line of not, of causing harm, of gossip, of bringing it back onto myself. So yeah, I guess I just wanted to speak to that, in my own attention. cultivating my deep knowing of what real pure empathy is. And as I examine these non-empathetic responses. So thanks for this, Anuprabha. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, Adrian. Yeah, I really appreciate that, your feedback. You know, I had a situation with a very, very close girlfriend of mine, and really she would call me and she really wanted me to collude with her, like so badly, you know, and I would really, and I seriously had to end the relationship because I just kept saying, let's look at it from another point of view, you know, and, you know, the different persons that she was talking about, their point of view. And so there comes a time when people, they're so invested in needing you to collude with them that I found it was almost, people can get angry when you don't collude with them, actually get very angry. And that can be another way that you have to make a decision almost. Do I want to keep that friend, right? How important is this relationship? Because some people, you know, they need that in they need you to collude with them. And so that's where also we have to really tune in and be really clear with ourselves and be willing to go, this is not healthy. This is not working. This is not good for the energetic frequency of the planet, you know, and it might have to sever a relationship even, you know. It's happened for me. So is there maybe one more example about colluding anyone would like to give? Marika?
Are you talking to me?
Mariko. Sorry, I'm trying to unmute you.
Okay, hi.
I was unmuting, you muting. Yeah.
Action. Okay, so I have a social justice activist background, and when I started to become conscious of a different perspective and a different worldview was when I realized that in general, people in the movement of oppressed people really want collusion, and it's a very easy solution to have the enemy and then talk to other people and be like, yeah, this enemy, yeah, that enemy, and it's like a repetitive cycle of collusion. And so
powerful example, Mariko, very powerful example.
Make wrong, make wrong.
Make wrong, make wrong.
But that's an example of they're invested in that. They need you to collude. And if you don't, then you're not in our team anymore. You're not an activist in our cause.
Yeah.
Get the F out of this movement.
You know, there's also this subtle way of this, well, not subtle, not so subtle, with families colluding, right? To keep their reality. You know, if you don't collude with people, some of their reality they're so fragile that their reality starts shaking, right? And they get, so that's another, it's a very interesting, fragile sort of way. Sometimes you have to work with people, I think, with this sort of, and what, like Mariko's talking, with this type of grouping that you're working with. And also family structures are so used to colluding and being connected. I'm sure, Timothy, probably you work with families. Have you had an experience of families colluding and having the family, like, have to keep the family secret, or have to?
It usually divides into quadrants. So it's like mom and son against dad, or it's rare that it's like the whole family, except when they have a story around particular thing, like the death of grandma, and they're all invested in it. And then lo and behold, you hear the story from grandpa, and he's got a different perspective on her death. And all of a sudden you realize, like, okay, they're colluding with each other. But most of the time the collusion falls into camps. You know, if it's a big family, it might be 3 against 2. It's really hard when it's all 4 against 1, right? That often causes that one person to feel like they're the black sheep of the family, you know, raising my hand. My family did that. They still do that to me. Yeah.
Anybody else the black sheep of their family? Yeah, I mean, and saying this, you know, being in this family of alcoholics, right? This was like a big collusion. I mean, this was a family secret as far. Nobody talked about this outside the family. or inside the family. That's how secret it was, you know. So it's a lot of collusion going on there. And so anybody else
Someone's got a
like,
question in here,
oh,
Anuprabha. Someone's got a question about, and I think it's Mariko around, and I think it's a good one around people who are in a victim space who often need you to collude with them. They're hard to coach, I find. I don't know if that's what Mariko's saying, but I think it's a really good point.
oh, exactly. That's exactly what I was talking about. What we're with this friend of mine, right? They just needed, and with certain people, for their reality to make sense to them. They're so fragile on the planet almost, that they need you to collude with them for their reality, to keep their reality, for them to be right, because they need to be right. Adrian?
What you just said is really powerful. Yes, we all want to be right because our beliefs are who we are. So it's so powerful. Such a powerful need for us. The victim one is interesting. One thing that coalesced for me around this is when we're coming from a solid place of empathy, we can be with somebody in their their place of being victimized, and holding the space of the person who victimized them. But when we're really grounded in a place of being empathetic, we're being loving with the person we're with, but we're also holding loving space for the perpetrator. We're also holding that greater, and not making anyone inherently wrong. Of course, if somebody's abusing someone else, they're inherently wrong. But if we're holding that place of greater love, we can be empathetic and holding the perpetrator responsible without this place of negativity, but a greater place of love for both. Yeah, and that's tricky. You know, like in the example of the person who recently killed the friend of Trish. You know, how do we obviously in our minds hold them responsible, but also hold that greater sense of love and empathy and understanding for the pain that he must have been in order to kill somebody else. You know, it's going to be very, very delicate holding someone responsible, but also holding that loving understanding.
Yeah, so true. I mean, the depth of his sadness, you know, to do that. You know, one way is like, I often envision, you know, just, you know, once you have a baby, you know, after, you know, if you ever have a little baby, right? And you just realize the baby was just, babies are just so loving and so pure, and what happens to that little baby that's where can have empathy for perpetrators, right? And this quality of what happened to that person along the way, not to make excuse for the choice of behavior, which is not okay, but the amount of pain and that baby child grew up in must have been huge, you know, to become, you know, perpetrator in that way.
If we bring it down a notch, I don't know about you, but I've been a perpetrator in many people's minds and still am in certain people's minds. And so I think there's a spectrum, right? Like there's a clearness where we go, okay, he killed her, that's not okay. Or he stole from him, that's not okay. Or they, you know, really offensive things. But like often it's a co-created experience where I felt like I've been the victim and I've made my boss, you heard me say it earlier, he was the perpetrator, right? And so I think what Adrian was saying earlier is so beautiful in the sense of how do we hold, and your analogy of the baby, how do we hold people who are being called perpetrators and people who are believing they're victims? How do we just stay with all of that and not collude and really stay in an empathetic being with space and remembering that, you know, this person may or may not be a perpetrator, and we don't really have to decide that. We can just stay with the feelings that the victim's having and not collude, be with. I find it's really difficult sometimes. I've had a couple clients where over time I've had to say, I think you need to go see a therapist. I think this is beyond my coaching level. And in reality, I didn't know who to refer them to. I didn't know a therapist who was.
Timothy, well, just staying with what you said before was so beautiful. It was so awesome. Thank you for wrapping it, holding it like that, you know, taking both me and Adrian and bringing it down to like, yes, we are all perpetrators and victims, right? And that is deep and that is subtle. And that's what, as love coaches, as coaches, we really have to be aware of that. Because when you're a coach, you're in a power position too, right? So that's the delicacy of this. It's very, you know, the perpetrator and the victim. Thank you for sharing that. Now I have, yes, thank you, Timothy, Adrian, Anuprabha. Thank you guys. So there's been some suggestion to break out into rooms. However, I'm kind of feeling like keeping it all together. I'm kind of enjoying this conversation all together. But I want to be available. What do you guys prefer? Like, do you want to stay all together having this conversation? Or would you guys like to be in separate rooms, in pods? Who'd like to stay in all together? All together, okay. And who'd like to break out into pods? And there's somebody that don't mind. Oh, Mariko doesn't care. Okay, so I think we'll just stay together unless there's a strong thing.
I just want to say thank you, Mariko, for bringing up that really delicate situation, and really appreciating everyone's comments around this. Sort of collusion. What a powerful concept to explore within the field of empathy and responsibility. So thank you all for that. Yeah,
because she was taking into this whole other group aspect, which is also really powerful, and how to work with that. So yeah, I think colluding is really strong as far as a non-empathetic response, and one that's very complex. It's a very complex one because, you know, I know it feels good when somebody agrees with me. I know that feels really good and everybody agrees with me, you know, and maybe not with the person who I don't agree with. So it is a constant state of being aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're doing it. Marika?
I think it depends on who you're coaching. Like Anuprabha, when you were coaching me, you gave me a response that wasn't colluding, but that didn't ignore the information that I gave you. Mm-hmm. And because maybe you are aware of, or maybe you're aware that I'm of a certain coaching level, then I can then see what you're doing and be like, oh, that's exactly what I needed, you know? But other people, you can start to do it and then you can see, whoa, they're not ready for you to not collude with them. So I'm just going to not do that.
Yeah. No, thank you, Mariko. Yeah, well, appreciate that feedback. So, all right, I think we're good with colluding unless somebody else that we haven't heard from has a story about colluding that they'd like to share, okay? So the next one, a non-empathetic response, is advising, providing a suggestion or solution. Well, we love that, don't we? We love to tell people just how they should do something, and they better start doing it right now in this way. TikTok. So advising. Well, who'd like to give an example about advising, or have an example of the experience when they've been advised or they've gone into advising? Timothy?
After 20 years of working with like at-risk young adults and youth and their families, I find myself quickly assessing, okay, this family is in this situation, this is like this, and here's what they need to do. And I often go right into advising, and I mean well, but humans don't, they want to be empathized with first and then asked, could I make some suggestions? And so that's why I'm in this class, is to really get away from advising so much.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. Everybody twinkle, Timothy. Yeah, I know. I can go into advising, you know, I'm like a general, you know, because when you're a mom, especially like a single mom, you know, it's like, you know, and you have a boy, you know, it's just like, I go into that general mode of like, okay, let's got to get this done, this is how you do it. And, you know, that does not work. I found out, you know.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, empathy is so powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, advice is so great sometimes, but I think you hit it on the head, Timothy, with empathy first, and then, yeah, asking for permission is such a wonderful way to create the relationship. But hey, I'll be willing to hear something. You know, so much openness. When someone says, yes, I'm willing to hear something, whew, quite a landing.
Even the way you said that, Adrian, you just felt that like expansion of like, you know, an empathy of like somebody really like what that feels like when you really get felt and somebody really feels how you feel, right? And that's a special gift, really, to have that.
And when someone gives permission,
It gives permission.
like, yes, I'm open to hearing something. And then you give some ideas, some wisdom, some advice. It's just such a powerful tool.
But empathy first, exactly. Thank you.
Empathy first.
Adrian. Adrian.
I know what you need. This is what you should do. Do this.
Yeah.
Can I share?
Sorry, who wants to share?
This is Greg.
Oh, Greg, yes, please. Yes.
Yeah, I have a big tendency to, you know, jump into that advising, and partly it's because I feel like I don't want to just complain for the sake of complaining. I want to move out of that. I want to, you know, and frequently why I'm telling people is to try to work it out and try to figure out what am I doing that I want to do differently. But what I recognize also is that I'm really beginning to feel how much I also need to be heard, especially when it's like I'm having a problem with something in our relationship, and I'm wanting to be heard. You know, like I'm not liking something that the other person did or something, and so I want to be heard. So I'm recognizing how important it is to make sure I hear people and then let them ask, or at most I might say, hey, I have a suggestion if you're open to hearing it. But it's so hard because I want to go straight into that advising.
Thank you so much, Greg. Let's twinkle, Greg. Yeah, Greg, this is to be heard, right? So empathy, seeing with the eyes of the other, hearing with the ears of another, and feeling with the heart of another, something like this. So this to be heard is so huge, just to and for someone to listen to you, really feel you without the advising or feeling the need to fix you.
But I noticed that sometimes when I do that, there's literally part of my brain saying, that's not, tell them what they need to do to fix it, because I'm trying to fix them, you know.
That's what Marshall Rosenberg would call an example of the fix-it jackal, right? And I think, you know, and often we all have that tendency to want to fix it and move on. Daniel, did you want to share something?
I just have a tendency to fix it when my partner needs a get it. I get called on that a lot. But at the same time, I have quite an aversion to getting unsolicited advice, and I've kind of trained myself, or it's happened. Like whenever I hear somebody say "you should," I generally stop listening after that. Or I've noticed that I stop listening because I don't even want to hear what you have to say if like it's unsolicited, and now that should word comes. So I definitely rarely use that word with somebody else, and it's just such a unsolicited advice is just something that really doesn't work for me personally.
Doing Twinkle, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, I think we really have to always remember that, the shoulds, right? Because I think most people have this aversion to hearing anything that they should do, especially if you have an unresolved teenage wound. You say anything about shoulds, and man, you lose people, especially guys.
One thing I want to point out exactly is it's really common for men to play the fix-it role. And I think one motivation for fixing is to deal with our own discomfort. We're uncomfortable. So we try and fix it to relieve our own discomfort. And it's a really wonderful thing to bring awareness to. That we're not trying to help necessarily the other person. We're trying to help our own discomfort and relieve our own discomfort.
Yeah, thank you. I can imagine, like, if a woman's like really crying or having a whole thing happening, and then, you know, it's just, that's often uncomfortable for men. If women are having this total breakdown and emotional and some like serious drama going on, and you know, I can see where the male has really a need to like fix it and move on quickly. Please.
We even do it to ourselves. We're crying, we're having a feeling, we broke down, and immediately we're like trying to get back to like, how do I strong arm this, or how do I get out of this feeling? You know?
Yeah, that's powerful, Timothy, because, you know, it's also what happens to men, you know, growing up, the boy's face, right? Like, I know I really, when I had my son, my fear for my son, I realized why I had a fear about having a boy was because I realized that I was going to have to put my boy, the way I parented him, into this society. Right. So you know, because he's a sweet, this is just when he's a little, you know, and he's like 3, I had to put him in preschool. And I just realized this because the conditioning of the male is so strong. You guys have so few, you know, ways of operating really that are really sanctioned by society. And it's frightening because it's still very alive today for the male, you know. It's just really not safe for the man to cry, to even get so happy sometimes, you know, just to show just this like John Wayne model is still so strong in society for how a man should be, that it's a straitjacket, you know. And it's really, I just saw with my son how he went from this really alive, adorable, fun, happy, heartful, into like a school setting where it really you can see with the boy's face, it's called, it just came down and just like the no emotion, I'm cool, it's all I got it all under control. And when you break out of that, it's dangerous. I've seen where it gets dangerous if boys show too much emotion or care even for another. They have to, like, guys have to do, I've noticed with my son, they have to do stuff like put each other down. That's how they show they like each other. Have you guys experienced that sort of thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually not, I mean,
Go ahead.
I'm hearing you guys talk about this, and I hear that happens. And yet there's like, I want to say that it also is not, that there's other situations too. And yet I still find myself wanting to fix. But I do feel the cultural, like, if I show emotion, especially like sadness or weakness or something like that I do perceive the cultural like impact. You know?
Yeah, it's such a simple example, isn't it? When you don't see men holding hands or hugging really for long periods of time because we're afraid that we'll be called gay or homosexual, and it's programmed into us. I think the younger generation's less, thank God, it's like lightening up. But just that straitjacket of, I don't want to be this thing, and then never even questioning, like, what is that? You know, like It's pretty interesting. Anyway, we're going to get way off the
Yeah.
topic. So,
Well, thank you. Exactly. But I thought that's all really valuable, and we'll come back and discuss that again.
Just want to add one little piece around fixing.
Yeah.
Men and women, we just all so want to be right. We so want to be right, and fixing, I think, is often an extension of putting our rightness into the world and, you know, validating our own reality. Yeah, imposing our rightness on other people.
Right.
That's so true. Our reality, right? That's why we really need to get really clear with ourselves, right? Get really, really clear, like who we are on the planet, you know, and have a really strong base, right? So that we can hold every different, you know, all different feelings, thoughts, thought forms. Everything is possible, all right? And all are welcome. Really, the all are welcome. And how important differences are needed. You know, the colors of the rainbow. We need differences. We all don't have to be the same. Be a really boring place if everyone was the same, right? So, vive la différence, they say.
How many more do we have? We have another hour or so. We have
okay, we have a few more. We'll have we're going to go into Thank you, Adrian, keeping us going.
I've also been curious about you, Mark. You have so much wisdom, and I love hearing all your shares. So we haven't heard from you in a while. Just want to point that out.
Yeah, I was just
pressure.
listening. I hadn't really didn't have a lot to say on
Great.
one.
Great.
But it was
recognize you.
really interesting. I just recently put together a men's group, and the main thing that I talked to the men about was that when somebody is talking, that you can't just jump in and give them advice. You know, like that's not a good thing. You've got to first ask them whether they're interested in hearing something. And the great thing about it is I think we're on our third meeting. There's like 6 of us. Nobody's done it. Everybody is really cool and really paid attention to it. And I know, you know, it's a hard thing when you're not trained or you don't have it in the forefront of your mind. But it was amazing to me that everyone really got it. So that was pretty impressive to me that 5 men or 6 men together and nobody was giving advice.
That's brilliant.
There's hope in the world.
There's hope. There's definitely hope in the world. That's why we're here. We got to have hope. All right, Twinkling Mark. All right, so we've been through denying, colluding, advising. Now we're going into interrogating. Non-empathetic response. Who'd like to give an example about interrogating, what that looks like? Daniel?
That also brings up my unresolved teenage issues when I make up, it's almost like an assessment, like a victim consciousness thing where I make up that I'm being interrogated and I just go on the defense. And I'm all triggered and I can't be present. That's what happens when I'm on the end of receiving what I make up as interrogation, for whatever that is worth.
That makes sense. Would you like to give an example of that, Daniel?
Yeah, you know, I can be like, even if I didn't do or say a particular thing, but I am told, I'm trying not to use victim consciousness, which would be, I'm accused of doing something that I didn't do.
You're feeling accused?
Yeah. Or being told that I had a certain motivation when I didn't. I don't know. It just.
Well, I can imagine like in a relationship, I think with the interrogation aspect, when you get, you know, with a husband, wife, male, you know, and you know, the interrogation, why didn't you take the garbage out, for example? You know it's Sunday, you know the garbage man comes early in the morning, so we had this agreement. I thought we were in agreement. I'm taking care of the kids. I've got all this, and you can't even take out the garbage. Take out the garbage. Why didn't you take out the garbage?
Mm.
But did you?
Thank you. Good example.
How did that feel, Daniel, though, with that interrogation?
It was a lot more, I guess, more of a superficial issue than I'm just trying to think of. The feeling is really familiar. I'm not thinking of an example right now.
Yeah, just like that feeling. Well, I just was interesting with the interrogation, what that would bring up, how that, what it brings up, like with the unresolved teenage stuff.
Well, it brings up fear. I get fearful, and I go into like, all right, am I going to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn here? Okay, that's like what happens for me.
That's powerful. I just brought up an example. I use that thing about the garbage because I had that with my ex-husband, and I guess it sort of was. I think he had this response of when I said, "Why didn't you take out the?" I asked him just to take out the garbage, but I think my tone of voice was so like upset because I was tired. I was the kids, and I'm like, take out the garbage or whatever. Why don't you take out the garbage? And what his response was, your father was an alcoholic. I said, why didn't you take out the garbage? He said, your father was an alcoholic. I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? Like it just went nuts. It's totally like, what?
Yeah.
Right? But that's the wounding. That's the wounding.
So
right?
One word that you
stimulate his teenage thing of not good enough or not getting the job done or the shoulds.
Yeah. So it's like the should, it's like the why question, I think often is a trigger. Like
the why.
It's like, you have a need for me to do this and you're feeling this way, but why didn't you do that? It's basically inferring what's wrong with you.
Wrong.
Exactly. What's wrong? That's right. So that's very dangerous. A why question, what's wrong with you? And then how do you feel when somebody's like asking you that, like, what's wrong with, and then you go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
See Mark continually raising his hand. I bet he's got something burning to say.
Mark? Twinkle, Daniel.
Which particularly comes up a lot, or has come up a lot with me in relationship. And I think that when I'm being interrogated, I almost feel like I'm willingly going into victim role because I'm allowing someone to interrogate me. And that somebody's interrogating me, they're not looking for a win-win. They're not looking to meet. They're looking to go further and further into the detail to find out where they can make me wrong.
Right.
So when I have the awareness and the resources of that happening to me, I stop it. And I won't allow myself to be the victim in that game. But it takes a while to get to that place. So it did for me. Yeah.
That's beautiful, Mark.
Thank you for that. Because interrogating someone is all about being right, right? How am I right, right? And how are you wrong? Interrogation. How am I right and how are you wrong?
And often really, again, kind of like the last one, dealing with their own uncomfortable feelings. When someone's interrogating, they're really navigating some challenging emotions, likely feeling pretty uncomfortable. And venting. Interrogation often comes in the form of a venting process.
There's a real subtle one, and I do it, and that's when my client is being silent. I've asked maybe a question, open-ended, and they're not responding. And I move into an interrogative process where I'm then trying to get them to get somewhere or feel or expose something because I feel it's my job and I'm in the power seat, as opposed to practicing empathy and coming back to just being with the silence, being with them, waiting. Clearly they're thinking, right? They're not just sitting there. But like Adrian just said, I get a little uncomfortable with the silence. And so then I move into it's not a full interrogation, but it's definitely like questioning and trying to get to an outcome as opposed to just being with what's here.
And I think that's the difference often between the male and the female, right? Because, where just as an example, the men can often want to need things to be moving forward. Whereas a woman, because, often we experience carrying a child for 9 months. So we're used to a gestation period, right? We're used to like, okay. And oftentimes just holding that, being in that silence with somebody, and then just allowing, even if it takes a minute, right, or a while, because oftentimes people need time. Like I sometimes need time to coming out of my family structure, that alcoholic family, we didn't have feelings, needs, to really come up with what I am actually feeling. So just sometimes, just remember to hold space and not to have to fill everything up with words is good for us to remember.
I'm really glad you brought that up. I'll try and say this quickly, Timothy, because you kind of brought up the subtle reality of where you can be coming from an empathetic place on some level and almost a fix-it place, where that interrogation is, and coming from a place of I know what's right, and not coming from a blame place, but from a trying to fix. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it kind of weaves, like, it seems obvious that of course interrogation isn't coming from an empathic place. Seems like an obvious one, and it's nice to kind of see how interrogation even can kind of masquerade as maybe some empathy or fixing. So thanks, Timothy, for bringing up that subtler aspect of interrogation.
Yeah. Timothy, everybody twinkle. Timothy and Adrian, Mark, Daniel, Greg, Mariko?
You're muted.
I'm wondering if interrogation is a correct term for this, because it sounds like with most of these examples, it just takes one question to trigger someone. And interrogation is a series of questions.
Well, it can just be one question with a type of tone that you have that sort of hits, as you're being deeply interrogated, deeply questioned in a way that's not making you feel good, making you feel wrong, making you feel like you've done something wrong, making you feel that you're not okay, making you feel like maybe you should feel guilty about something, does that make sense?
It's like a dismissive question.
Like a dismissive
one powerful dismissive question. And then
we added, I think that's another, Mariko, I think we didn't have this on this page, but dismissive is another non-empathetic response. It's not actually here, but we added that, come to think of it. Thank you for bringing that up, dismissive. Yeah.
Well, because what Daniel said, it just starts with 2 words. And then with me, I hear, don't you have GPS so much, almost every day. I have an issue with getting lost and having anxiety and things.
I understand that.
So I hear it and I get to practice my response over and over and over again. And it's gotten better. And I've had to self-care and self-manage and self-empathize with myself and manage myself through my own trigger. And recently my client yesterday, he was trying to, and I had to practice empathy, mirror that response to that client with empathy, the way that I would like to be treated when I get lost and I'm late.
Would you like to give that example?
Yes, I would. So the client was like, I put this in my GPS and it led me over here and all of that. And I go, I totally understand that. That happens to me all the time. It happens to me more often than I'd like to even tell you about. but I understand that, and we're gonna worry about what we're gonna do future forward. So you need to actually go to the parallel street that is, where you are right now. Just drive, like super guiding. Like I was coaching me. It was great.
That is so beautiful. I love that. Let's twinkle Mariko. That's beautiful response. That's experiencing that interrogation or the
like just super nice. Like it's the parallel street. That's a military property, so you can't get through. I totally understand that. It's confusing.
I feel that really helps when people say that. I get lost too, and I really, when someone says I understand that and is really patient with me around that, my God, my whole nervous system relaxes. So that's a great response, Mariko.
I'm well, glad you brought that up, Mariko. That you, I think, spoke to that really beautifully, Anuprabha. Is that interrogation? The feel of interrogation can come up even just with one question. And again, like it comes down to the person feeling like they are right, they know. And it can take different forms. And if you're coming from a place of, I know I am right, you are certainly not trying to understand what's happening for the other person. What's right for them, how are they feeling, what are they needing and wanting?
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. I think that's so true for us too. Really on a level, there's this level where I think we all think we are right, and we do know, right? I mean, like I know stuff. I know.
It's just true for yourself. You know what's right for you. You know how you're feeling. You know what you're wanting, but that's not necessarily true for the other person. And that's such a powerful thing to really.
It's really, really powerful to take in deeply.
Right.
Great. All right. We're moving on from interrogating. So Mariko brought up dismissive. And that's also another really non-empathetic response. So would someone like to give an example of what dismissive would look like?
It's similar to denial, right? It's like I'm kind of putting those two things in
well,
the same camp.
Dismissive is more like, denial is like denying that it ever happened, that like, no, you didn't get sick. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I got the same symptoms, dude. What do you mean I'm not sick from you?
Whereas dismissive is like you almost acknowledge it and then move it over to the side.
Yeah, it's like dismissive is just like,
it's not that important.
Not that important. Really.
You're making a big deal out of nothing.
Don't make a big deal.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. You're making a big deal. Yeah, like chill out. Be quiet. Like go. We don't want to hear you. Just like it's not. It's not important. You don't matter. That doesn't matter. It's not important. Oh, I know. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Listen. Would somebody like to give an example of being dismissed or dismissing someone?
Oh, I talk too much, someone.
You can go, Mariko.
Yeah, go right ahead. We love hearing from you.
So I was just removed from a women's group, and then I had a question, and the facilitator in a Zoom call like this, she was like, we don't have those kind of questions here. We don't do that. We don't do this here. And it was really like that in itself was, led to a greater problem than I believe it really originated out of. Because at first I tried to put the question on the Facebook group, and then she didn't respond at all. So I brought it to the Zoom call, and then we don't do that here. Oh, we're not going to do this today. Sorry. And it was really like that. Nope, we're not going to do this today.
So was that feeling of being dismissed, like you didn't matter, right? Just be quiet. We don't want to hear you.
Your emotions are not welcome here.
Do you feel like receiving some empathy around this?
Your emotions, no, we do not have time for this. And don't come to the group when you feel this way.
Mariko, do you feel like we're receiving any empathy around this? This feels really powerful.
From her or from the group?
From any of us. I noticed this impulse to give you empathy, and it's
would that feel good to you, Mariko, if Adrian gave you some empathy for that right now?
Oh yeah. Sure.
Yeah, Mariko, hearing your story about this really hit hard in my chest. I have such a fear of being dismissed in that way, not being valued, not being appreciated, and yeah, it felt really painful. Like even in this group, part of my fear is being dismissed, not being valued, not being appreciated. Just hearing your heart, I can only imagine the question you brought, the value and the power of what you're bringing, and to say that this isn't welcome here, that feels really painful. And I'm sorry that happened.
Thanks.
Would anybody else like to give
And
Mariko?
there's one last thing. There's
Oh,
one reason why I don't put myself out. Like I'm afraid to put myself out on social media, and because of this fear of being like, no, what you're putting out there isn't valuable. It's not wanted here. It's you aren't good enough. Yeah. So that's what came up for me hearing your story, and yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Adrian. How does that feel, Mariko?
It feels like, yeah, good, because the next part of the story is I came to one of the empathy groups of this LCA to try and get empathy for that. And Scott, for some reason, didn't see my question. And so it actually happened the very next day in a group that I thought that was going to actually give me empathy. It happened like, it's like karma doesn't take a long time. It takes the next moment sometimes. And it's like, that is a lesson that you need to like, and so it was really nice to see that same wound with Scott doing it as opposed to this other woman doing it. And that was the gift that I got, you know, like, but I guess why I'm sharing that is because it can happen in this group too. So like, you think that, oh, I'm studying love, compassion, and I'm a love coach, and I'm so empathetic, you know, like, but Scott didn't see my question because apparently like I was cooking or something. He didn't think that I was, you know, going to be present. So he didn't want to put me in at that time or something.
Well, I think, you know, what happened, just to thank you for sharing that, both you guys, very much. Let's twinkle Adrian and Mariko. And, you know, it's kind of feeling like what's really good though in this group is that it's a safe space. So, and we're in it. So when things get triggered, if it can't get handled right away at that moment, there are love coaches to talk to you then, or, you know, or it is going to get solved at one point, right? And this is a safe group to always speak to, right? And you can also bring up that, right? So, which is very unlike other groups, right? For example, or even friends or family. So this is a safe place to even share what you just shared, you know, your uncomfortable feelings around not being seen and heard, right? But then we were able to talk about it the following day, and that turned out good, right? That was good. Yes. A good session.
Yeah, really good. So that's the huge difference, that I got resolution from you and another from Laura, and worked it out in a really great way. Just had to have longer patience. But mostly I wasn't really as triggered because of the dismiss. Scott wasn't dismissive in that way. It was just not verbally dismissive. I just got ignored, where I felt that I was ignored, or I wasn't given a voice or an opportunity to, like, I felt that way. So, but verbal dismissive is a different thing. Like if someone is verbally, we don't do that here. I'm sorry, we don't do that here. That's like huge, huge difference.
And how wonderful would it have been if she was like, Mariko, thank you for your question. I can appreciate its value, and you know, we're focusing on different topics here, but you know, thank you for asking the question, and maybe somewhere else or some other time, you know, to recognize your question, and then say, yeah, and you know, I'm not sure the nature of the group or your question, but man, if we can all just like lay those grooves of recognizing someone, valuing them, giving reassurance before we say no, or not here, or not now, or, gosh, this is just such a Jedi power to be able to do that for people.
That's such a great way of reframing it, Adrian. That's incredible Jedi power. And I think if Marika would have got that response, I can imagine you would have felt seen, heard, appreciated,
Oh, sorry.
There.
Like, it's not hard to create, it's not hard to reverse if you're trained or if you have the consciousness to do it. So 2 words can put someone there and 2 words can take them back out.
I really
just
like
inspired me to
Marika.
talk about repair. Oh, we can always repair. We can always go back and, oh, I'm sorry, would have liked to have done this differently.
I like how all of you are pointing to basically the artfulness or the mastery of the person in the power seat, Scott, in this case, this woman running the group. And that, often when you're in the facilitator role, you have your agenda, you looking at your watch, the time, you're trying to get all your content material, and then you get somebody who throws you a zinger. And there is that tendency to just dismiss and keep the train going, as opposed to pausing and taking the time to be empathetic and inclusive. And I really appreciate how we're kind of indirectly pointing at mastery. And it's an art, right? To be able to hold a whole group and do, especially when it's got volatile topics. Like, we go deep, and I'm sure this group that you're talking about, Marika, with women and Mariko with women and issues, thank you for correcting me. I'm sure there's like lots of volatility and sensitivity and things coming up. So.
Thank you, Timothy. Adrian, Mariko, let's twinkle these guys. Appreciate it. All right, so denying, colluding, advising, interrogating, dismissive, and the next non-empathetic response is evaluating. Evaluating. Telling the other what their motive is. Unprofessional psychoanalysis. Okay. Example, you just don't want to listen to her. It's the same pattern I've seen you do with your mother. Ooh, evaluating. That's deep. Who'd like to give an example of that? Evaluating or being evaluated. Adrian?
These are so great. And again, the subtlety of
the subtleties.
When I'm actually about evaluation could be coming from an empathetic place and welcome if it's coming from a base of first tuning in with understanding, empathy, I'm with you, and evaluation could be an exploration. The example I'm going to give is subtle, but when I was doing it, I was kind of like teetering. Am I being kind of dismissive and evaluating? So my partner has been struggling with a lot of gut stuff for a long time, like lethargy, different symptoms. Have spent years going through different protocols and diet and allergy and this supplement and that supplement and gaining weight, and we were talking about it last night, and I did this thing where I kind of laying down like, well, ultimately there is benefit to exercising more and being aware of calorie intake, and I did it in kind of like this where I wasn't just fully like tuning in as much as I should have. And there was this kind of evaluation, like, well, yes, there's a lot of factors, and when it comes to trying to lose weight, these are important factors. And I did it in kind of like this quick, sharp way where I was just evaluating the situation. And I felt like there should have been more. I was just kind of coming at it from a dry place, from an analytical kind of a place. It was there was some other stuff. I'll give myself some credit, like but in retro, like when I was looking at it again, there was this quality of like, I should have brought some more things with it. So they're going, yeah, and like, you know, you should probably maybe track your calories and be clear about cardio, because those are two helpful things. Yeah, anyways, I'm kind of outing myself a little bit there. I also know there's a lot of complexity when it comes to health and losing weight and fitness. So
And women.
And women, yeah.
When you go there. And I just want to appreciate your vulnerability, Adrian, and sharing that. So, and I so appreciate really willing to go to the depths of yourself. And I did notice that you were shooting yourself a few times in there. And so I'd just like you to take, give yourself some self-empathy and self-love, you know, and because we are really doing we are doing the best we can, you know, and we have to take that shit out of ourselves.
May I respond to that, what Adrian said? I do want to acknowledge your self-reflexivity about this. And I'm not even sure if your partner came to you to complain about it, but I really appreciate that here you are going backwards after the conversation to just think through, you know, like, what are my strengths and weaknesses in this presentation? I think we'd probably all benefit from, you know, that seems to me like a really great example of self-reflexivity in the primary relationship.
Thank you, Laura. Oh, would somebody else like to give an example of evaluating, being evaluated or evaluating? Daniel?
Hi, everybody again. So we have this process that we refer to often that we've kind of tweaked to fit our relationship. And in the end, what happens is we start out with, when you do this, I tell myself a story. And then we go into empathy, both guessing the empathy and affirming you're right or wrong, you know, and just getting really clear on what the feelings and needs are. And then we go into validation and validate, oh, it makes sense that since you were thinking that and you were feeling this, that this is all going on. And then it comes to a place where it's like, can you see how all of this relates to something in your childhood? And after going through all of these steps, then the person is like, oh, like ready to self-evaluate and see where it comes from. So there's some magic in the being able to recognize that it's a story, and then going through the empathy and the validation, which then like opens up the energy to be able to not be evaluated from the outside, but to be able to evaluate myself from this place of connection and understanding.
That sounds really good. Really good couple work. Really good singular work. Yeah, powerful. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, I think we're good with, Timothy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one form of evaluating that I know triggers me is when someone defines me. And I think that's the same thing, where they say, you know what your problem is, or, you know, the one I love is, you clearly have a sexual issue, and that's why you can't be monogamous, or, you know, that kind of thing. Like, I get it all the time. It really pisses me off, this whole idea that if you're not monogamous, then you're deviant, or you're perverted, or there's something wrong with you, or you're insecure, or you're afraid of intimacy. Like, all that level of defining around my sexual preference, just, again, you can feel it. Like, I'm upset even just remembering some of the partners and psychologists who tried to pathologize me and put me into their box. My favorite one was, oh, you just want 5 shallow wells rather than 1 deep well. Like, fuck you. So.
You know, that is a great, I really love that example, that share. And it seems also, I can imagine, you know, for the man, the straitjacket again, right? This like, let me define, yeah, like, because that really would bothers me too, that evaluation, yeah, defining you, like you're just this, this is all you are,
I'll
right?
own the worst ones as a man before I started working on being a white patriarchal male. I am, and a racist, I am, and really working on pulling it apart. And I guess a misogynist, you know, unconscious, but the one that, you know, a woman's in a hysterical state and she's maybe lashing out and blaming me for something, and I get triggered, and then my comment of like, you're hysterical, right? I'm defining, I'm evaluating, and not in a helpful and in a non-empathetic way. And I imagine creates the same feeling that I get, that defensive, like fight, flight, fright, freeze, or flop, you know, your moves you into that state. It's really unhelpful.
I'm feeling inspired. Enrico asked a question that I think was a good one. So if you see truth, you should empathize first and then offer evaluation. And what's coming up for me is this idea of the difference between evaluation and exploration. You know, if we're coming from a place of I am right and you need to see my rightness, I'm going to evaluate you and this is the truth, as opposed to coming from curiosity and exploration. And yeah, I think Marika, like, yeah, if you see someone seeing something, offering a value, empathy, and that there's some wisdom you're seeing, I think bringing it up in the context of curiosity and exploration, such a, I think, more receptive framework than this idea of evaluate, because again, that's right, wrong.
I'm interested how that would feel to you, Timothy, in that, using that example you gave, just briefly, but what that would feel like if there would have been more curiosity, would that, or an exploration?
If it's actual curiosity, yes. If it's interrogation, meaning they're trying to bring me back around to
they're trying to make you wrong and them right? Yeah. If they're trying to make you wrong. So it's this really, this curiosity has to be so fine-tuned, because this is something that's very alive for you. So
yeah, and we're really good at sensing bullshit, and sometimes I'm so much on guard that I'm not. Someone asks a question and right away I'm like, oh, okay, are they evaluating me, defining me, or are they actually curious? So it can take some time for them to, I think, move through my barriers in this particular arena, for me to trust that they're actually curious, and that they're not going to come out with some comment like, oh, so you're a polygamist. You know?
Mm-hmm. And could you give an example? Would you mind, what would be a question that you would could hear in a curious way that would feel good to you, for example? Because I think
a really good one is like, tell me about what it's like to have multiple partners. You know, open-ended, there's no judgment there. I'm just really curious about what is it like.
So tell me what it's like, or tell me more. Tell me what it's like to have multiple partners. So that would feel good.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful, that's powerful. Thank you, because, I think we all are going to come up with in this situation with people, and that are highly triggered on a lot of different levels, right? And so how to, with curiosity, and so they're not feeling interrogated and evaluated, right? Because I think we have a lot of shame, right? Humans carry a lot of shame. I carry shame. I think I can go into feeling evaluated and dismissed, and so, but if I'm like, yeah, tell me more about that. So thank you.
And shame and guilt.
Is there any other question?
You bring up shame and guilt. It's such a great way to explore someone's shame and explore their guilt with them without adding to it, right? And helping them unpack it. So
right, because that's what we want to do. We want to be able to explore it with them and not give them more, right? It's a goal. Okay, great. So everybody twinkle, everybody. You guys are awesome. The next one we've got is preaching. Preaching. Telling the person what they ought to do. That's kind of like advising, although I guess it'd be preaching would be like from the pulpit, for example, like, you know, even taking the, like, I'm the one and only, and you need to listen to me because I really know everything, right? So you're going to preach, right? Anybody want to get an example of what that, of once, if you have been a preacher of sorts to somebody, or if you have been preached to? Mark, you're smiling. Is that a experience you've had? We have to unmute you. There you go. Oh, sorry.
How's that? Can you hear me now? Yeah, I think I used to, I still do it, but I used to preach much more. And I think the stopping it is really for the person that's doing that, that I'm referring to, is, are you really doing it for the intent of informing, or are you in doing it for your self-serving need to look good, or to show how much you know, or, you know, that kind of thing, as opposed to, so I'll often have to keep stopping myself and saying, okay, am I telling this to the person because I think they really want to hear it, or it could be helpful, or am I just trying to look good, or look smart, or look, you know, something? Yeah.
Such a good insight, Mark. That feels like, you know, like looking at, why am I doing this? Am I want to look good, look smart, you know, be in power, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Any,
I think preaching is even like the next layer of I am right, and I know what's best, and I want you to come over to my side and see how right I am and how I know is best, which is like the exact opposite of empathy and understanding. Probably the echelon of non-empathetic response.
yeah, the term preaching to the choir, right?
Mm-hmm.
One other example of preaching? Anyone? Greg?
No.
Oh, sorry. Greg, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. That's right.
Are we good with preaching?
I can share just my own, getting over my own tendency to preach. I sat my first Buddhist meditation course when I was 21, and it had such an impact in my life, cultivating this ability to develop objective awareness and equanimity. So powerful. It changed my life, and really wholesome and non-dogmatic. And yet I developed this this place, this position of like, this is the best and everyone should do it. And I got like in my 20s and even, you know, like on, developed this preachy, like, you should do this, this, you know. And I recognize that even though this is wonderful and non-dogmatic and really scientific and so powerful to develop objective awareness in this particular way, in this meditative way, it's not for everybody. And it took some time for me to get over myself and go, you know, yeah, bring it up, sure. And I still do preachy stuff. And one of the most powerful thing, and I'm feeling emotional even saying this, I feel emotional saying this, one of the most powerful things that's come from this work with Scott that kind of changed my life is this idea of right and wrong, that there's nothing is inherently right or wrong. I mean, yes, there's what's right for me, but getting away from the right wrong paradigm has really changed my life. And yeah, and from that place, understanding what's right for other people, what's right for me isn't necessarily right for you. And my arrogant Aries nature has been humbling for me to, and just life-changing to move from that idea of like, right and wrong. So
That's twinkle, Adrian. So true. Getting away from right and wrong. It's huge. And, and this is the thing is like, all ideas are welcome. Like all is welcome, right? We have to really allow for differences and appreciate each other's differences. Yeah.
appreciate what other people need.
And appreciate
What's
what other
right
people
for me isn't necessarily right for somebody else.
and what other people are feeling, their needs. Exactly. So beautiful. I want to go now to downplaying. It's a bit like dismissive, I think, downplaying, but minimizing the other's reality, right? Downplaying it. Can't be that bad, for example. Like downplaying something, any example, their experience, Laura?
Oh, Mariko, I think, had one. Okay. My example is, let's say two people get into an argument and one person says, oh, you were being aggressive. You upset me. You caused me to be upset back because you were being very aggressive. And you say like, well, I was just, exhausted from doing this thing. It was really difficult, and you misread my feeling. It was not directed to you, etc. So I think this is an example of downplaying the other person's experience. There's a kind of rationalizing to it, I guess, but it's like trying to say, you misread this, so your experience is not as bad or as important as you felt like it was. So if we embrace this not making wrong situation, these people can have very radically different experiences, but it's important to recognize the emotional weight of both experiences, I think.
Beautiful. Beautiful, Laura. Thank you. Mariko, did you have an example of downplaying as well?
So, you're too sensitive is a good one. I was told that my whole life. You're too sensitive. You're tripping. Stop tripping.
How about the one, you're too much? Have you ever heard that?
No, you're too sensitive. That's the one I got growing up.
I get you're too much. That was like.
Or I'll frame it in a way that sounds good. It's, I don't have the capacity to meet you where you're at. Notice how subtle it is, but it's, wow. I've said that in relationships, as opposed to just really owning, like, I'm overwhelmed right here. I don't know how to meet you where you need to be met, really being vulnerable with it. But it's like you flip it, you gaslight in a way, you flip it onto the other person.
That's so powerful.
Yeah, you're downplaying by basically, saying, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, Timothy, could you say that again? Because
it's really subtle. I used to say this in a relationship at times where I would say, I don't have the capacity to hold this, meaning like you're too much. You know?
I feel, so I start feeling contracting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And feeling like, wow, I've really done it this time. He's going to leave me. I'm going to be abandoned. I can't share my feelings. It's not safe.
The one I heard as a kid often was around that sensitive issue was, you're too intense, which again made me feel like people didn't feel safe around me, or I was dangerous or something.
Yeah, I'm just feeling that really in my solar plexus and heart. Anybody else? Adrian?
It was really great to hear Mariko's examples. It inspired me to understand downplaying a little bit more. I think one really common way we downplay is we shift the focus onto something that's good. And actually, I feel like the process of going to gratitude, which I think is amazing, can be a subtle way of downplaying. I think it's really common for us to go, well, I have so much, so I shouldn't be in so much pain. You know, I'm so privileged, so this pain that I'm experiencing is not worthy or valid. And I think it's really important for us to recognize that even for those of us who are really privileged, who have homes and food, and our pain isn't any less valid or real. You know, for example, even a subtle way that I'll downplay my partner's challenges with physical stuff and weight stuff, I'll go towards sometimes, you know, focusing on, well, you're so beautiful and this and that. You know, it can be downplaying the reality of the pain. And I really feel passionate about this because I feel like it's so common for those of us who have so much to downplay our pain. Like, well, there's people in India living in slums, and their pain is more valid or worthy than ours. And it's like, you know, pain is a reflection of wanting things to be different than they are. And we can have millions of dollars and be in just as much pain as somebody who's living in a shack. So, yeah.
That's so important to bring that up. That's so important. Mariko, I also want to really thank you for that was so powerful what you were sharing and really putting it in that feeling perspective. And Adrian, you know, Brene Brown has said, this is what we're talking about is comparative suffering, what you're talking about, right? Comparative suffering.
Yeah.
And this is like, it's like something happened to me, but it's not that bad because someone is starving someplace else, right? But in fact, it's what matters is that it's what you're left with. Like your suffering is what your experience is, right? It's your pain and it's your reality. And that's what needs to be seen and felt and empathized with.
Yeah.
Right?
And no matter what we have, we can want more. And when we want something other than what is, it's painful. Whatever our baseline is. And as from the Buddhist perspective, our wanting more is a bottomless bucket. In fact, having more can make it more painful, more challenging. We have more to lose, you know, from getting into that existential reality of wanting and acceptance, you know. That's a whole other call, or we get a whole.
Yeah, the downplay is, you know, it kind of starts out kind of feeling like it's not that big, right? Like downplaying, oh, it's not that big a deal, right? And then you're realizing, well, this is a big deal because the downplaying can make you like smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, you know, until you fucking just disappear, right? So this is like, it's huge. These, you know, what we're doing, these non-empathetic responses we've been discussing here are, these subtleties are so powerful.
Super powerful. You know? I'm so glad you brought this up as a topic, because you could look at all of these and such great things to meditate on.
Really are, right? And just getting really and kind of like embodying them, right? Like today with everybody and really discussing them and feeling them and you know, getting triggered by them. It's really kind of think we're really like putting them like deeper into our cellular memory, you know? And
I'd love to give you an appreciation on Anuprabha, if that's okay with you.
Anuprabha?
Anuprabha, if that's okay with you.
Oh, that's really sweet. Thanks.
And tangentially, Adrian, this also goes to you, but I've been texting Scott. Thank you so much for having computer issues. This was an excellent class.
Oh.
Prabha has done a fabulous job, and this has been really meaningful to me. So just sharing it directly with you as well.
Oh, thank you, Timothy. I really, thank you so much. That just, that's food for my soul. You know, that just is really, really deeply nurturing and heartful. And
it's nice to see you let it soak in. Thank you.
Yeah, I just really want to feel that. Thank you very much. Well, it is 12:02. We have one more as distracting, but you know, we can do that, or we can end for today. So, you know, we've discussed a lot, we've shared a lot. How's everybody feeling out there?
Can we take a bathroom break and continue, or is that, well, if we do continue?
We'll distract them. So there's one more.
There is one more, distracting. That's
And
like, these are the subtle ones, right? More
will you
subtle.
be able to post this list or this document in the Love Coach Academy class thing?
Yeah, I'll take a picture of it and then and post it.
Yeah, or we could ask Scott to, if
Scott has it, definitely. This is from Scott originally.
okay.
Right? Because there's distracting is the last of these, and I would call these the subtle ones. And that's why I really loved, discussing these deeply today, which is such a beautiful discussion. I really appreciate everyone's heart, everybody's vulnerability shares, everyone being, I just felt so much presence here with everybody, so present and so connected and on this deep level. And when the groups do it, and we do things as a group, it just makes it more and more powerful. It really sinks in deeply, right? And so I'm so grateful, for you guys to trust also me in this. And Adrian, thank you so much for just like grounding it out and coming in. I mean, everybody, it's just been awesome. Yeah.
I would love to talk about the last one, but I'm also hearing that, thank you, Anuprabha, for that. I appreciate it. And I'm, here's my tendency. I know Enrico has bathroom needs, and I would love to talk about this last one.
Okay, I'd like to do it too. You want to take a little break and come back? 2 minutes?
And I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask Timothy if you're available, if you're willing.
Yeah, I'm open. We could do that while everybody's taking a bathroom break. Everybody left.
Okay. If you need to take a bathroom break, that's
no. I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. I guess the first one was you were sharing about the Anuprabha, and my housemate came in and asked me something, and I missed what you said.
Oh, I was just sharing. I asked her if I could give her an appreciation. She said yes, and I let her know I've been texting Scott just how valuable this class was and how grateful I was that he had a computer issue, because Anuprabha and Adrian have done a great job delivering these non-empathetic responses, and that this has been one of the best classes for me.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, and actually, in light of that, when you gave your example of I don't have the capacity to support you or to meet you, I'm curious, is there a way in which, like, I don't fully understand how it's only the possibility that I'm underhandedly, like, turning around. I guess
I'll give you the example.
Because I guess I could see where, like, I'm truly not able to meet you where you're at. And I apologize or something,
But see, the cop out there, or the what happens is the other person ends up feeling like you're abandoning them, usually. And usually when we're in a situation like that, the other person has an abandonment issue. In my case, I also have an abandonment issue. And so it's like I am abandoning because I'm.
So instead of it being like I really want to meet you here and I'm not able to right now.
Or better, talking about
more
what's.
Like, I don't want to meet you here.
A better, even a deeper way to go is to be vulnerable and to say, wow, I'm getting overwhelmed with the intensity of what you're feeling. And I'm lost. I'm not sure what to do right now. And then just really trying to come back to listening and to empathizing and being with that person. And the examples I'm giving were in intimate relationships, not with clients, because that's where I'm more hooked, I'm more attached, I'm more involved, my stuff's coming up. And when I look back at it, it was absolutely unacceptable the way I behaved. It was very much like an ingrained, it was a cop-out. It was like a way of basically lightly saying, you're hysterical, you're crazy, I can't deal with you.
I don't want to go there with you.
Yeah, I don't even want to do this. I'm out. I quit, as opposed to being able to say, wow, can you explain to me again what you're feeling? I really want to understand it. I really want to be with this. And then later I could still say, you know what? I feel like it's best that we take some space in our relationship, or that we end the relationship, and doing it in a way that that allows that other person to still feel like they've been heard. Whereas,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
This is beyond my capacity. I can't hold this. I'm out. It's like, yeah, it's really.
So that statement of like, I don't have the capacity to meet you was kind of like as like an excuse of wanting back out of the relationship kind of thing.
Yeah, it was definitely like a way of
Okay.
me beginning to end the relationship, as opposed to me continuing to, whether I end the relationship or not, staying with my partner's emotional need.
Right.
And owning my difficulty in doing
Okay.
that, but then staying with it. And if I had done that, the rupture and the harm that I caused would have been so much less.
Thank you.
And this person wouldn't hate me today.
That's
Thank
so
you.
beautiful. Thank you for that
Thank
question,
you.
Greg. That's beautiful, Timothy. And you know, like, because what I was hearing, what would have felt good, and then you said that, like, if you would say it like, I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I really do want to be with you, and you know, I want to be with you. I want to get this, but I am feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You know, somewhere that I could see where that would feel good for me, you know, in that situation.
That's giving reassurance in that situation, which is so
reassurance. There we go.
Yeah.
The reassurance would be powerful. Yeah, I'm just feeling overwhelmed, and I really want to be with you. I just want to reassure you that I want to be here. I want to get you. I want to feel you. I want to feel this. I'm here. Yeah.
And like, I appreciate the back and forth between Tim and Greg. Let's say Tim actually wanted to end the relationship and there wasn't a lot of well of reassurance.
Yeah.
There still could be a piece of reassurance and not making the other person wrong. Tim's making the other person wrong. You're too much, and kind of like there's almost like a jab there.
Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to like really just taking responsibility for your own experience and your own feelings and needs around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I have experienced hearing I'm too much from somebody. Somebody in my life. And it would have been really the difference between what hearing it the way you said it, Timothy, would have felt really good. Mariko, and then we're going to go to distracting. Yes, Mariko.
No, so I just want to give Tim empathy over just the whole thing that you're revealing to us. Like, it seems so obvious that you've done such deep work on this relationship, and it's so awesome to see that modeled for a person who's codependent and grew up in a family that I was told I was too much over and over, and for you to actually break down that subtle thing that I've heard to me in relationship that stems from that childhood wound, that is actually healing to me. So thank you.
Thank you, Mariko. Let's thank Mariko and Timothy. This is the power of creating safety, having a safe, this is the power of this group, you know, at Love Coach Academy is creating the safety container where we can share these deep wounds and the, you know, just the male female wounding that's there, of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. We can get back to the divine masculine and divine feminine with this sharing. I mean, I just feel so much care and love from, you know, really hold all the men in this group have just held the container so beautifully. I really appreciate you guys. And thank you for your examples and sharing, because it really does help my feminine to feel really safe, you know, and really healed in a deep way. Even just reacting that, like as I asked you to say it again, Timothy, before, because that was really healing to me. And I would imagine it'll be healing to Mariko and healing to who's ever listening out there, who's going to be listening to this podcast, as, you know, and sometimes just to hear this and then to take it in. That's really, really.
And it's healing for me to be not that guy anymore, and to be able to
be witnessed.
A different man, yeah.
To be witnessed as well. Okay, great. Thank you, guys.
We're going to do the last one.
Distracting. distracting. Laughing.
We got distracted.
We got distracted. Distracting. Laughing at or escaping your feelings. Who has an example?
Let's go get some ice cream.
Yeah, let's not talk about that right now. I'm hungry. Right. Would you like to go more into that, Adrian?
Yeah, I could. You know, there's all of these have very common themes around, you know, that are coming up, which is so common in this work. Needing to be right, needing to deal with our own uncomfortable feelings. I think often when we distract, we're really taking care of ourselves. Someone's dealing with something, instead of really being with them, understanding with them, feeling what they're feeling. It's like, no, let's go do something else. Let's be somewhere else. Let's focus on something else. And it can, yeah, often be because of our own discomfort. We don't have the capacity to really be with somebody. So let's distract with focusing on something positive. Yeah, doing the ice cream. Let's do something else. Yeah. It's not really alive in my life a lot right now. I'm trying to think of the ways that I certainly, well, I distract myself all the time, as we all do. I love distracting myself with food and shows. And yeah, so actually, yeah, that's not, yeah, I mean, yeah, distraction. I mean, and I think distraction can be really healthy and appropriate. Most of us can't deal with our shit all the time. And so a healthy level of distraction is absolutely necessary. So I think it's good to understand the balance of, you know, when distraction is really a good thing and doing our best. So.
You know, thank you, Adrian. I do think let's twinkle, Adrian. You know, what I've realized about myself recently, huge, is that I use work as a distraction from my feelings, from my connecting with my beloved. I have found myself just really going into, you know, work and I get off, and it's like an adrenaline thing, and I kind of really love it. You know, I can just go and go and go, and I just keep on going. But I'm putting these kind of emotional vulnerability needs, sort of like, that are more uncomfortable to have to deal with, like, oh, I have to do this. I have to get this work done. Then I've got to get this done. Then I have to get this done. And so I'm distracting myself from really getting emotional needs met, you know, because that's more uncomfortable for me. And I could be abandoned, you know, or just very, you know, made to feel like I'm making too much out of something, you know? And so instead of going into these kind of emotional needs that I'm needing, I'm really distracting myself. And I've been looking at that a lot recently.
I think when I'm sharing my emotions and the person is asking me a bunch of details about the story, I feel that's very distracting.
Beautiful, subtle variation. That's really interesting.
Right. It's safer to go into the story,
right,
than to hear the emotions.
I can't deal with my feelings, so they're going to get into the details of the story. Or maybe the story's more interesting than my emotions.
Thank you, Mark, for saying that, because as it often happens, you say things that work for me as well. Like it's just like, that's why I kind of keep working, because I'm afraid my story is going to be they don't want to hear really my emotions, right? They'd rather hear the story. Yeah. That's safer place to be.
One of the subtle distraction things, you know, where we almost move distraction into a positive, that I use, and it's an NLP technique. It's older than that, but that's one of the people familiar with NLP, I think, is to take someone's attention off of a story or a situation that they're talking about just for a little bit. So you distract them, get their attention onto it by asking a question, and then you bring them right back to where they were, ideally bringing them deeper into the emotion or the belief system or a greater understanding of what they were saying earlier. It's like a status break, a state change. It can often you use it to try to get them out of a loop, because people often get caught in, they're saying the same thing over and over and over. And so you're distracting them, but you're using it in a positive sense. And then you are bringing them back to where they were. So I think it's a little different than what we're talking about, but I notice that there are times I distract people to help them.
Oh, well, that's a good example. Distracting in a positive way.
Yeah.
As long as you know how to navigate back in. But what I was hearing from Mark was he was really being available with his emotions and feelings, which I know you know that, Timothy. I know you heard that. And then he was saying that as I'm understanding, that the person was getting more attached to that story, wanting to know the story rather than really hearing or caring about your emotions.
Yeah, what Mark's talking about, I've done that even as a coach, where I'm going too quickly, and so it might not be taking them into the story, but rather than stay as long as possible and really let them just kind of wring out that rag, I'm already moving into some other thing, and it's distracting them away from their emotions. I really appreciated what Mark shared.
Thank you. Thank you, Timothy. Everyone twinkle. Timothy, Mark.
And Mark.
Who else has a distracting story? Adrian? Oh, Daniel?
Yeah, I have an example of, say, me and my wife are driving across the island, and we've been in silence for a while, and I'm like in a really wonderful space because the clouds are beautiful and the mountains are beautiful. And then she might bring something up that's like really uncomfortable, a subject or a feeling that she wants to talk about. And I have found myself like, but wait, look at that beautiful cloud right there. Isn't that amazing? And it's not received well. I think that's a distraction.
Well, that is a classic one. Yes.
Yeah.
That's a classic cloud Hawaiian. That's a classic Hawaiian cloud / rainbows distraction.
Exactly.
That's special for Hawaii.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I catch myself with intimate relationships, same thing, just quickly moving it from the emotional, uncomfortable thing that they want to talk about or bring up to, what a great day we're having. Why do we need to do that now? So so what you just shared is so real for me. Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
And then like the devil's advocate part of me is like, but you're distracting me from this.
But I mean, I think the challenge with that is in the car, right?
Yeah.
Because that's like almost kind of like a kidnapping, hijack sort of like, it's a pressure cooker, it's a car, you're moving, and you got to also choose when you're going to have topics uncomfortable.
In the car or 5 minutes before you go to bed.
5 minutes
you're about to go to sleep, and it's like, let's talk about the most difficult thing going on in our lives.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. So I think set and setting, as far as just set and setting, to really, and we're like, and maybe even that's something, wow, honey, I'd really love, that is so important. I can see that's really important to you, and I really want to discuss this, and I really want to have a conversation around this. And can we like do it resource, and we have time, because I really want to give you the time that you need to share this. And and we'll just have this little journey together, and then let's get the time and be together, and then how does that feel? Will that work for you?
Yeah, we actually have come to a place where we realize that the car is off limits for having a deep conversation, because we can't even look at each other in the eyes when we're doing it. And that's super important, So we did come to that since then. Yeah.
But I know that the car thing is big, because it is, the woman thinks, I gotcha. Gotcha. Lock the doors. So, I have that with my, that's actually a technique for teenage boys, actually. Get them in the car and you start talking to them, because you're moving and you're not looking at them. It works really well for teenagers.
It works with your daughter too, right? Like,
yeah,
okay, we were on an hour drive. I've got my daughter all alone. I'm going to ask questions.
Exactly. So that's a sentence I guess for the kids, but for relationships, it doesn't go down well. I think maybe because the man remembers when he was a teenager and the mom had him in the
car. And I just really am appreciating this conversation, and I appreciate what you were talking about, the devil's advocate. Like, well, you might want to just be with the beautiful day, and both needs are valid and valuable. But then, of course, addressing, like, well, I'm having this need, you're having this need, and what's our agreement around this? Both are valuable, and then how do we want to navigate? Mine, just the sweet beauty in the cloud, your deeper conversation, and can we come together and make decisions together around how we meet both of our needs with being with both? Yeah. And
that's great.
This work, that's the beauty of these tools, is navigating that, making agreements together. How can we be in a right relationship together, doing our best to honor our needs? Sometimes it's challenging because we don't always have the same needs at the same time, so how do we come up with agreements that work?
That's great, Adrian, because like in that situation without the agreement, I would tend to downplay my needs for being nourished by the beauty of nature.
Yeah.
And obviously your needs are more important than mine in the moment because it's hotter for you. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Interesting. Powerful point. Yeah.
Beautiful. Good insights. Beautiful points. I mean,
well, it's hotter for her. It's more alive. It's more intense. So then, therefore, it's kind of typically, automatically gets more value or importance.
Right.
So you're being down. It's like downplay. So you're feeling, dismissed, downplaying your needs. So the non-empathetic. We have to look at the non-empathetic responses that we're feeling in our subtle body fields, right?
Yeah.
And then, now we can say, no, that doesn't feel good, right?
Yeah.
That's work for me, and I still want to hear you. Well, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Like,
powerful.
Okay, and I still want to hear with you. I want to be with you. I want to get this. Let's do another better time, better setting when we're well resourced.
With that sweet reassurance, I hear you. I feel strength. I love you. I want to support you, and I can't fully be there now.
Because I'm in the middle of being resourced right now by this beauty that I need.
Right.
Yeah.
How about we all get resourced by this beauty, and then we'll have a little picnic together, and then we can discuss. We can go into detail and depth of how you're feeling, because I love you and I really want to feel you, get how you're feeling.
I guess one reason why
I was wondering if there was a reason I was muted when I wanted to share.
You can't actually. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Greg, did you want? Okay, just raise your hand, Greg. That's all. What did you want to share? Sir. Greg, did you want to share something?
Well, I did want to share something earlier, and then I was muted, so I wasn't sure if there was a reason for that.
Just raise your hand, and then I'll unmute you.
Okay. Well, I raised my hand, and I wasn't seen, so that's where I don't know if I'm seen.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm just curious because with the dismissal or the distraction, there was a comment about that I thought. Sorry, let me start over. There was a doctor who was studying relationships, and he noted one particular couple where when they were having an argument, the husband would suddenly just look down at the woman's feet or whatever and say, I always appreciated your feet, or something like that, like said something positive. And the researcher was talking about how that kind of reset the mood, because it was getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And then it was like this, this is something I like about you, I love about you. And so it's like it can be not done well, and it can also be done to help, like when we were talking about distracting ourselves from the story.
Would somebody like to add to that or comment on that, or what you feel about that? Marika?
We haven't talked about narcissism at all, but like a narcissist is someone who doesn't have empathy at all. So like I wanted to acknowledge, Anuprabha, you had given an example of distraction that sounds like a typical narcissist response, where they will throw out what I call a pain bomb. And it's like a non sequitur pain bomb, and it hurts so bad that it really like sends you off into a hole. Like you were angry about a certain wound and they just threw you a pain bomb, and now you can't remember because they know you are a traumatized child, so they're just gonna throw you a pain bomb. Like your father was an alcoholic. Like that really, I've had, that kind of exact narcissist pain bomb. And so I just feel empathy towards that. And I want to like, just if everybody caught her saying that earlier in the story, that is like a very narcissist pain bomb distraction tactic.
Well, thank you. I never shared that story ever before because it was just such a like so painful that I never, and I just and so shocking, and just so thank you, Marika, for like connecting with me and feeling that and kind of like acknowledging it. Thank you. Adrian?
Thanks, Mariko. Greg, kind of speaking to that study, I'm not fully understanding it, but what I'm hearing is that the scientists actually determined that in that situation where the couples, where there's a dynamic, sounds like a challenging one, the husband looks down and compliments the feet, and that actually providing a positive response, or creating a positive dynamic where there's kind of a distraction happening. Am I understanding that correctly? Yeah.
Yes.
And my guess is that, that I could see that potentially being a pattern disrupt and maybe being helpful in a really intense situation. And if the husband is actually doing that in a positive, loving way, well, there actually is a quality of really recognizing the truth of that reality, and isn't being dismissive or trying to distract away, but is genuinely from his heart going, wow, your feet are so beautiful, that could have a positive response, especially if let's say the woman in this situation, assuming, really actually feels that, and feels appreciated, feels loved, that could be beneficial. You can imagine, even in the situation where the husband is genuinely trying to do a pattern disrupt and is genuinely being loving, that it might not go over well because she's not going to feel seen for all of the content and the other emotions that are happening. And it could be a challenging thing, but I can imagine an example that, yeah, maybe that could actually work as a pattern disrupt if the intentions are really clear and pure.
Right. And I certainly didn't mean to say that like this should, this is like, no, we should be thinking about this all the time, but like, yeah.
And I think Timothy talked about how distractions can be helpful and appropriate, and he really the way he talked about that, I think, was really wise. And I think distractions can be a good thing when the intention is good and when there's a bigger picture of like why, and we are going to come back and fully care for and tend to all that's happening.
Yeah, thank you. Let's twinkle Greg and Adrian. I just to wrap that up a little bit, and then we're going to be having to wrap this whole thing up. I do feel like you have to be really careful with that sort of, because even like that positive, sort of seemingly positive thing, wow, I love your feet, that does really just kind of can be dismissive of really what she's trying to say.
For sure.
You know, and that wouldn't feel so good to me, because I would want to be sharing my feelings, you know. So it's just these subtleties, you know. We've just been, you know, you guys, thank you. We've just been really going into really the subtleties of all these non-empathetic responses here, of denying, colluding, advising, interrogating, evaluating, preaching, downplaying, distracting, dismissing. And these are the, like, really the subtle ones, because the big ones that we know, judging, blaming, shaming, comparing, right? Those are big ones. But these subtle ones are huge.
Mm-hmm. So
I just like to, we're going to be closing, and if we could just close our eyes just for a minute, I just like to end the way we started, and just really, just like really close our eyes just for a minute. We'll just do this. Just take a breath in. And out. Let's take another breath in and out. And just really honoring everyone's really deep, soulful, valuable, vulnerable share. That everybody was so willing to be so available and so open and trusting with each other. Let's really appreciate each other's heart, the courage that it took everyone to share what they shared today. Okay. You can come back into the room and just shake out a little bit. Just feeling a lot of gratitude and gratefulness. Your shiny beings and your sharing and your vulnerability and just availability, everybody. I'm just so, I just have deep appreciation for all of you. And I just feel so nurtured and by all of you. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for going with the flow. Thank you, Adrian, being my wingman.
Thanks so much for bringing such great values of going with the flow and excitement for the unknown.
Oh.
May absorb some of that.
You know what? Vive la différence. We need each other just the way we are. You're perfect just the way you are. We are perfect. We all need each other just the way we are. So and thank you. So appreciate that, Adrian. But I just really appreciate your groundedness, your presence of mind. I just, you know, we all need each other. You know, we need each other. So we're all interdependent here on the planet. Really
Exactly. I just felt like such a collaborative, like we all just, this was all of us. And
yes, it was all of us. Co-created it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm off and I love you all and appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Okay.